3DS enforcement, it's still a fairly optional framework. So what that means is that depending on the issuer, signal, data, and assessment, they can decide whether they want to push that transaction through additional security or whether they are happy to let that transaction flow through without any additional challenge. So what that means is typically in the US, if a merchant was approaching the 3DS from a blanket approach and turning 3DS on for all the transactions, chances are they probably will see a lot of declines. Same in much of the LATAM and APAC region. There are pockets of issuer-led encouragement to adopt the 3DS and some that are completely ignoring the framework. Japan, for example, is one of the latest markets that has enforced 3DS. 3DS not being a global mandate means that there is a fairly divided approach in terms of how that impacts the approval rates, the user experience, and the subsequent decline of that transaction. And let's remind ourselves that this is the first step, the authentication, before that transaction even gets authorized by the issuer. So we're ending up really with a divide in terms of the same merchant will have very, very different performance setup, but will have a complete different result and outcome in terms of their authentication framework. What is key to remember is that the authentication framework and the strategy around that is not simply one rule. It has to be designed with many components and parameters in mind. The regulation is one part, but really understanding the signal data, but also understanding the issuer behavior, because ultimately it's the issuer that will control the decision. They are essentially maintaining the ultimate decision in terms of authorizing or not that transaction. And that expectation is really important because it will vary from market to market. It will vary from the issuer appetite, their behavior, the pattern that they are observing, and how that transaction flow back to them. We have defined how authentication is important. We now understand that there is a regulatory framework in place in certain countries. Now let's look at some practical use case with the next video.